First item of business, roll call. Commissioner Buttleman?
Here.
Commissioner Gould is absent on leave until May or June of this year. Commissioner Miller?
Here.
Commissioner Okeson?
Yep.
Commissioner Peltzer is absent, and Commissioner Redmond is myself, and I am here, at least partially. Next item is approval of the agenda. Is there anybody that, hopefully we've all had a chance to review the agenda, anybody would like to make a motion to approve?
Mr. Chair,
Yes?
I wanted to add one item under staff presentations.
Okay.
March 16th Environmental Commission meeting.
I needed my weapon. So you're adding that where? I'm sorry.
Staff presentations.
And that's March Madness meeting?
Correct.
I'm putting that too.
Any other adjustments, suggestions? Any motion to approve the agenda as amended?
I'll move to approve as amended.
Second.
All in favor of approval of the agenda as amended? Aye.
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 Or abstentions? We have an agenda. All right. Next item is approval of minutes from the Wayback Machine, December 16th of last year. It's our last full meeting. Hopefully, we've all had a chance to review the meeting minutes. Is there any motion to approve or edits or corrections anybody would like to offer?
Move approval.
Moving approval, Commissioner Buttleman. Is there a second?
Sure.
Sure, from Commissioner Okeson.
I was absent.
Oh, yes. I also was absent.
I'm glad they liked it then.
We can still vote even though quorum was not at the meeting. We have quorum here. I think we can approve the meeting minutes.
Yes, if you weren't there, it is commonplace to abstain.
Right.
Okay.
But I'm just verifying that even though there are 4 of us here and only 2 of us can vote on it, 2 of us have to abstain, we can still approve the meeting minutes because there are in fact 4 of us here. I don't think that's an issue, is there?
But we can't vote on it.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have to save those minutes till next time?
Let me pull out my Roberts rules here.
How about
perhaps we should hold off.
Okay, we can hold off.
Yeah.
All right, we'll hold off on that. It'll be it's a cliffhanger for March. It's always good to leave us with a cliffhanger. Okay. New business, election of chair and vice chair. And then we'll be talking about the 2020 work plan and environmental priorities. So with item A, election of chair and vice chair, is there anybody would like to make a suggestion for chair? In fact, I would like to recognize myself. I would like to nominate Commissioner Miller for chair, if she would like to accept the nomination for consideration.
Sure.
Okay. Is there any other nominations that anybody would like to make?
Oh, no, I was just,
Any other nominations?
Why are they on the game?
I'm
because
sorry?
it's either everybody looking at
looking at
him,
me.
her or him. We keep going back and forth.
Who's in the-
Do
I
we
would
need a
like-
second to the
Oh.
nomination?
We should, you're right, yes.
Second that.
Awesome. So we have a nomination and a second on the floor. Perhaps we'll vote on, I'm sorry. We'll vote on chair first and then vice chair nominations. Are there any other nominations for chair? Any other nominations for chair? Okay, we'll close that. So all in favor of Commissioner Miller as chair? Aye.
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 Any abstentions or nays? Hearing none, we have a new chair. Thank you.
Oh, is that me now?
Yeah. Do you want to run it and do nominations for vice
Oh,
chair?
you can do vice chair too.
Okay, then that way I'll finish up new business. Okay. So any nominations for vice chair?
Anybody want it?
I would like to offer up a nomination for Commissioner Okeson if she would like to be
Fine.
willing to accept the nomination.
Fine.
We got a fine. Okay, so we have one nomination. Is there any other nomination that anybody would like to make? Any other nomination? And one more time. Any other nomination? Okay. All in favor of Commissioner Okeson as vice chair?
Mr.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
passed.
Former chair.
Mr. Former Chair, you seconded the previous, so perhaps
I'm
we should
sorry.
do that again.
You are entirely correct.
Yes.
Thank you for that
I've
process
got my
correction.
Robert's rules here.
Nice. You are a speed finder on those rules. That's great. Okay, so do we have a second for the vice chair nomination of Commissioner Okeson?
Second.
Okay.
That's your official role.
The evening seconder. Okay. And I'll ask one more time for any other nominations. Okay, hearing none. All in favor of Commissioner Okeson as vice chair? Aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions or nays? All right, we have a chair and a vice chair. Congratulations, ladies.
I have a
Thank you.
question. How did you get a scarf and a shirt to match like that?
It was totally accidental.
Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
In fact, they
That's super
vaguely,
planned.
they vaguely clash a little bit.
Nice.
That's good enough for environmental fashion. All right, I'll hand it over to the new chair.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. Let's see. Looks like we are on new business B, 2020 work plan and environmental priorities. And that is heading on over to Ms. Finwell.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the commission. So normally, we would call this the 2020 goals, but I've been doing this now for quite some time, and I think if we call them a work plan, we get more done. So we are now outlining our 2020 work plan, because we know that there are some items that, pardon me, we don't need this presentation just yet, thank you. There are some items that we need to accomplish as a commission, and then there's other items that we hope to accomplish to meet our specified goals as outlined in our Environmental Commission ordinance. And as a refresher, I did place on page 2 of the staff report the Environmental Commission duties and responsibilities. And one of those is to pardon me. Basically to help guide the city in its environmental priorities and procedures and ordinances. And then I also updated you on our 2019 goals, which included some broad strategic goals on energy, accessibility to local foods and trails and transit, and then sustainability. And what seemed to have happened is I think we all got very busy and didn't make too much headway on some of these goals, but I do outline that many of the items that we reviewed in 2019 specifically led to, kind of this strategic planning for these goals. So don't feel like we didn't accomplish the goals, it's just we took a different route. Then I also like to include the meetings and events for you on page 3, just so you can see what's coming up. And as we work on a work plan, we can identify maybe some of the events that the Environmental Commission wants to participate in and continue your educational outreach. And then it's always good to identify the council strategic priorities. They have 6, so that we're ensuring that your goals and work plan complement or support those strategic priorities. They include community inclusiveness, financial stability, infrastructure and asset management, integrated communication, operational effectiveness, and targeted redevelopment. And then finally, I do identify our work plan, which are the items that I know that we will need to address in 2020. And that includes the solid waste ordinance. And of course, we're looking at that tonight. This is a requirement to amend this ordinance based on the new contracts with both Tennis for recycling and Republic Services for trash. And then the ordinance itself is about 7 years old, so it needs a little amending over and above what the contract states. So we'll be looking at that tonight. Trash and recycling annual review. So I have spoke to the haulers, both Republic Services and Tennis, and they're prepared to give those presentations in April. They weren't available in March, so we'll hear from them in April. The climate adaptation plan, so we began that planning process last week. We worked with several various organizations and key staff in the city to begin that planning process to create an actual adaptation plan that will give us some policies and goals for dealing with particularly vulnerable populations with the changes in our climate. And so we should have that complete by the end of the year. And then we do have a representative on there, Chair Miller. And then, of course, Commissioner Redmond is leading that group as part of his part of the MPCA grant, which his company, of course, championed Pale Blue Dot. So we have 2 representatives there, and then we'll bring up back information to the full commission. Climate mitigation plan, that would be the next step, or preferably working in concert with the adaptation plan, but that's something that we should look at. Mississippi River Critical Area Ordinance. So the DNR updated the Mississippi Critical Area rules, and all cities are now required to update their ordinances, and we have been identified as required to start that review in September, and then we have a year from that date to update that. And in Maplewood, there's just a small portion of our city in the south leg that is actually in that critical area corridor. But there are about 15 homes down in that area. And then zoning updates. With the comprehensive plan adopted, the city is now required to amend its ordinances, particularly land use ordinances, to ensure it meets with the comprehensive plan. So we'll be reviewing that throughout the year in concert with the Planning Commission. And then finally, we did update, as you know, the comprehensive plan, and for the first time, we have some energy goals as well as local food goals as outlined in our sustainability chapter. So I think that really should guide us in any kind of extra goals, or I should say extra work plan items that we want to include for this year. So I included all that in your staff report, and I have highlighted the areas that we have already accomplished. So with that, I would like to open it up to the commission for some discussion on moving forward, how we can all support each other in accomplishing these goals, and if there's any outstanding items that you'd like to see us work on throughout the year. So with that, I'll turn it back to you. Thank you.
First of all, thank you so much. This is so much of what we need for information all in one spot, and you've just cleaned it all up for us and made it a lot more accessible for us. Thank you very much for all of your hard work. Is there anyone that has any questions or anything to add to this discussion? Let's see. All right then. These must be new or something, because I'm really can hear myself right here. This is crazy. Is yours that loud?
Audio.
Wow, okay. Can you still hear me? It's freaking me out a little bit, okay. So the solid waste ordinance, these are things that we have in the works already, you're saying?
Correct, so
For
the
that'll be
items.
tonight,
Yep,
and then the trash and recycling annual review will be on the April 20th meeting?
correct.
Okay. And Commissioner Redmond and I will be getting some of these meetings together or I'll be attending yours. Climate adaptation plans, climate mitigation plan. I'm sorry, I missed a little bit about that one. And the Mississippi River Critical Area Ordinance. These are all things that we have to keep on our work plan, I'm assuming, for this next coming year. Is there anybody that has anything to add to this? Commissioner Redmond?
I just have a clarification related to the climate adaptation and climate mitigation. So the grant which was provided for the climate adaptation covers the climate adaptation efforts. It does not cover climate mitigation planning. So the planning effort that is currently underway is the climate adaptation portion, but climate mitigation is currently unaddressed just because it's not covered through those sources. So we do need to sort of establish a means of addressing the climate mitigation plan, because those were the two sort of core comp plan goals that drive sustainability. I mean, there's the energy goals, but those are really kind of, in my mind, a sub goals to the mitigation planning effort. So as a city, we need to establish a process, a mechanism to do that other half of the planning.
Okay. Would that be something that a subcommittee could decide on the wording and the actual specific goals for that? Or should we discuss all of that right now, since we're just only one more than a subcommittee right now?
So, are you saying to discuss?
Yeah, the mitigation part of it.
Like how to go about doing that?
Madam Chair, so, yeah, maybe we could get a general outline of what a climate mitigation planning process would look like
Right.
from Commissioner Redmond, our expert in this area. Would it be the same type of steering committee and so forth?
Yeah, similar. The basic process is very similar, or typically is similar. There's, of course, different ways to approach almost anything. But a typical process will first start off with sort of research data collection. We have our greenhouse gas inventories, which is a large part of that. But usually there's other community-based data that you just want to collect. Population counts, number of businesses, various metrics that you can then measure your greenhouse gas inventory from the perspective of identifying sort of top-end strategy or areas for reduction where you might get the most bang for your buck, so to speak. And then typically, once you have sort of data collection, initiating an initial round of engagement of some form, so we get some thoughts and input from community is frequently kind of a next step. Then the third component is usually working with a steering committee, much like the adaptation effort, folks that are maybe a blend of people with some expertise as well as just folks that care about the community and want to be engaged, and they have different perspectives. Having a steering committee like that work together to explore some of the potential reduction options and prioritize options that make some sense. And then as a plan starts to be honed and crafted, looking at establishing an implementation plan. Who should be doing what? Are these actions things that the city can do by themselves, or is this something that we need to have partners, that sort of thing? And then once you have sort of a draft plan in place, usually some form of second round of engagement to get input from community members in various forms. There's lots of ways you can do that. And then based on that input, wrap up the plan and bring it forward for approval. So that's the typical steps to getting it done.
Okay, and so you have a lot of that information data collected already in your report, correct? I'm just trying to see where we are in that process so far.
I would say, with the greenhouse gas inventories, the inventories are in good shape.
Right.
There are some other sort of community-wide metrics that I
Right.
usually recommend you collect. But I would say that first step, the city has 50% or more, probably, call it 80% of what's needed. It's just a little bit of organization and a little bit more research for data that isn't readily available.
Okay, and so you're thinking we need a separate steering committee, subcommittee for the community input, correct? I'm trying to make sure that I'm hearing you correctly.
Well, I
So
think.
one for the data and one for the community outreach part of it?
Well, not necessarily. I think what we need to establish as a city is how we're going to do a plan.
Okay,
I mean, is this something that the city staff's going to do? Is this something that we're going to do through volunteer help? Is the city going to hire a consultant to do it? Is the city going to find a grant to do it? I mean, how do we go about the planning process? I think there needs to be a mechanism established.
I think
to do that.
ultimately, we would have preferred to do it both at the same time.
Yes.
Yes. So I think in this situation, we would need some sort of expert consultation at a staff level to assist. So that means kind of establishing a budget of some sort. So as far as what your commission can do and to set goals or to get this on the work plan, I think we've just identified that we'd like to start this. Do you think it would be best to wait until the adaptation planning process is complete? Because, well, that's quite a process as it is.
From my perspective, any time is great. And in fact, the ability to do them with some overlap is positive because whether it's the same sort of stakeholder group or a different stakeholder group, it allows a greater opportunity for finding of overlapping strategies that can help boost both adaptation as well as mitigation. So having some overlap is great, isn't absolutely necessary. It's a great opportunity. So
I will get back to you on some strategies for, what we may need to do with budgeting and so forth. But I think it would be quite challenging to do this all on our own as a volunteer, or as volunteers, and without the expertise we don't have that expertise at our staff level. So we have identified that we would like to begin this process, so I'll look into some more information and bring that back.
okay. I would also like to possibly make that mitigation like a 3A, because it's 3 and 3. Just to keep it separate, to make sure that we're doing that. And would it be possible to get a list of the steps or the outline of what we need for that? That you were saying, I was trying to keep up and I spaced out, I'm really sorry.
yeah, I can throw something together.
Okay, because that way we can kind of break it down and get some people on it. Great. Okay, let's see, yes, Commissioner Redmond.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
Sean, can you share a little bit more of the Mississippi River Critical Area Ordinance? What is the magnitude of that? I have to embarrassingly say I'm not familiar with that ordinance.
I don't think that will take too much of our time. It does identify development standards in the critical area, mainly adjacent bluffs. And of course, much of this is on the river, but we don't have any riverfront, so it doesn't affect us. And a majority of our critical area is actually the Fish Creek open space, owned by the city and Ramsey County. So it'll just be some work on my end and probably a month review on your end.
Okay. Awesome.
Does anyone on the commission have any additions to these goals or want to put any of these other actions as goals? Okay. Commissioner Redmond?
So it's not necessarily an ad per se, but, the city council strategic priorities are awesome. And there's a couple of them that I feel like, I'd love to see us be able to do something about. I'm not really sure how we leverage it. But for instance, community inclusiveness. Every community that we're working with as a firm, trying to get great community inclusiveness is a struggle and a challenge and a super crucial and important part of any community work. And so I think our commission, it'd be fantastic to have more community inclusiveness, more representation, more engagement. I don't know how to go about doing that, but I just offered up as a comment. I don't know if we want to try to do anything about it, but I just put it out there that if anything was to be added, trying to figure out how to expand on that, I think would be awesome. I just don't have a suggestion for it. So.
I'll add that the Nature Center recently was awarded, the city, the Nature Center sponsored it, and the Watershed District, a grant for, it's called legumes, lawns to legumes, yeah. So they'll be working with 15 households, residents, to create more pollinator-friendly lawns. And as part of the grant, they're required to do several different types of pollinator programs and some outreach. So it'd be a good opportunity for the Environmental Commission to partner with them on some of our local food actions, with the pollinators.
Super. Are they, was it 15 homes? Mm-hmm. Have those been selected, or how does that happen?
No, I just learned more about it. We'll be rolling out the information in our seasons, which will come out in May. And apparently they need to all be in the same neighborhood. So they've identified some interested residents through some of the programs that they had in the past, some pollinator programs. And then there's a street project in a neighborhood where they will be putting in a lot of rain gardens, so it might be a good opportunity to coordinate with that. So again, it'll be released in May, and they'll have these applications, and probably by June they'll have the households.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and there's 4 different types of habitats, I understand. Pollinator prairie, pocket gardens, trees and shrubs, and something else. So the households can apparently choose which option they want. And then it's planted, and then the maintenance is covered for 2 years
Fantastic.
to help our pollinators, particularly the rusty patch bumblebee.
Our old pal Rusty. I just saw a big, like a poster for that or something today. Well, I'm really glad that that's happening, and I'm hoping that we can get some more information from them so we can maybe assist them with getting the word out there or something. Something.
Yeah, I'll ask that they come. You haven't met our new natural resource coordinator, so I will ask that she and perhaps Ann Hutchinson, the lead naturalist down there, come and present that, and then maybe kind of go over their goals too, to see how we can partner with them.
That would be great.
Yeah.
I think one of our goals should be, and always usually is to assist them with their goals. I'm not sure if that's specifically put in here, but I think we should put it in there. Any discussion on that?
I concur.
He's going to second it.
Excellent.
It is identified in your duties and responsibilities, but yes, it'd be good to outline that as part of your work plan to
Right.
help partner with the Nature Center on their Lawns to Legumes grant.
Yeah, I think if we're more specific about it, it'll be more in the forefront of where we're putting some effort
Yeah.
and some energy.
So if it,
I was wondering if, excuse me, if you had any ideas about events or coordinating around events, particularly with the climate adaptation, we could do some outreach, or the pollinators. We do have Waterfest coming up. That'll be held on May 31st this year. And then other events like National Night Out, 4th of July, these are things that we could participate in and do some outreach.
Another thing I have been finding, I've been going to multiple PTA meetings for schools around here, and they are beginning to do, their cultural liaison program is really expanded, and they are starting to do like evenings where like a cultural group, they had an entire group of people come in and explain the Corinne holidays that are happening right now, and they had food and all that kind of stuff, and I think that if maybe we can tap into those a little bit, that might help with some of the community involvement as well. Sorry, that just came to me when you were saying that.
Well, I think we'll have a full plate working on our climate adaptation, hopefully getting the climate mitigation started, and partnering with the Nature Center, and then carrying out the other items that are required as part of our work plan. So let me know if you have any other thoughts on how we utilize our time this year.
Commissioner Redmond?
I think it would be good to, I mean, I like the list of 6 here that you've put together. This is great. And I think beyond that, the idea of community engagement as a number 6 item. And certainly the 3 that you listed, the Waterfest, National Night Out, 4th of July, plus the, whatever the Nature Center is doing for their pollinator engagement, if we can support them in some way. And maybe also just reaching out to our awesome staff at the Nature Center to see if there's any other partnership opportunity, some sort of collaborative session we do, or an open house, or let's talk sustainability, or something. We could just see if there's a potential for that in the fall, maybe, to kind of have some even exposure. But I think having a specific bullet item that is community engagement would be good on our work plan, so we can map those out.
As part of this new work plan versus goals, I'm still
know I'm
talking,
having issues.
still talking it through, but I think it would be beneficial to have a work session with the council. This group has never sat down formally and discussed, except for presenting your goals and your year-end report, to them, which you get, 2 minutes to do that. So that would be something that would be beneficial. So I'll continue to look into that.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
That would be awesome. The other, so just from a process perspective,
Seconds it.
just from a process perspective, are we capable of changing how this works so I know, for instance, there's another community that I was interacting with here this month, and it's a sustainability commission, but a commission meets every other month in a formal meeting, and then every odd month as a workshop session. And the advantage of that sort of structure is a formal meeting has, formal agendas and so, I mean, it's just a somewhat stiff process. I mean, as opposed to a working session, you still have an agenda and specific things that you're working through, but it can be more conversational and potentially more visionary and, creating work, not just approving work sort of a thing.
Like a round table.
Yeah. So I'm just wondering, I don't know what kind of flexibility we have in terms of process, and I don't know that the whole commission would want to make a change like that, but Sean, do you know if we have flexibility in that kind of process mechanism?
Thank you. I like that idea. I really do. Especially with this commission, it would work because we're not reviewing a lot of land use permits that, we have to get through. On occasion, we'll see a variance for a wetland, something like that. But we're more, kind of plugging away, moving forward with policy and ordinance changes, things like that. So it would work great with this commission. But as far as flexibility, I think I would have to take a look at the ordinance, and of course, all that would have to be approved by our management, but I think the ordinance might identify that we meet, but how we meet monthly, so I'll review that option.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Because one of the things we could do to kind of make sure that the public is always available to come to things, I know, like if there's more than two of, or three of us or whatever, then it's a quorum. I'm wondering if we can do the workshop type of a situation where no decisions are made, but just sort of dig in and talk and discuss and do all this other stuff, and then, that way there's no decisions being made without being in front of people.
We could also hold the work session in here in a more informal setting, and it would be open to the public and
Okay.
videotaped even. It
Okay,
would just be a matter of setting up the room differently.
okay. Yeah, let's look into some more of those options, because I think we kind of all sort of pull towards that sort of a meeting anyway. I mean, we kind of are fighting to stay in a formal venue here, and that's a struggle for us, especially for what we need to do and talk about, so I agree. All right, moving along, is there anything else that we can, besides coming up with some more of these, a little bit more specific things that we need to talk about? There's nothing really to make motions on, just to discuss. Is there anything else that anybody would like to discuss on this?
Do we need a motion for the work plan?
I don't think so.
No, okay.
Whew. I know I did that before too. Okay. Is there anybody else gone? Have anything other suggestions? Anything else, Sean?
No, that's it. Thank you for your comments, and I'll bring back more information on the climate mitigation and looking at the opportunity for doing work sessions.
That'd be great. I really appreciate that. So let's move on to unfinished business, solid waste management ordinance and standards. The big chunk of paper.
Well, I have a brief presentation. You've had this before you a couple times now, but we weren't able to meet and formally make a motion on this. Is everything okay over there? So it's not the most colorful presentation, but I think it'll help us kind of follow along here. So on June 12th of 2012, the City Council did adopt the current solid waste management ordinance and standards, and that was after the City of Maplewood organized its trash hauling, and we had to amend the ordinance based on that. So that ordinance now is, 7 years old or so? The ordinance outlines regulations for trash and recycling for single-family, multifamily, and commercial properties, and it also includes licensing requirements for the haulers. And then the standards, which are a separate document, and it's outlined in the ordinance that the city manager can adopt these standards. They can't supersede the ordinance, but they can go into more technical detail that can be changed periodically without having to amend the ordinance. And so those standards include eligible items to be included in the trash cart set out instructions, residents' trash storage requirements, and payment of charges and delinquent fees. So a little bit more background. The contracts with both Tennis for recycling and Republic Services for trash ended December 31st of this year, and the city went out for an RFP, a request for proposal, for new residential trash and recycling contracts, as you all know here. And then on September 9th, the city council, after our group, the Proposal Review Committee and the Environmental Commission reviewed those proposals and made a recommendation. The City Council authorized a 5.5-year contract for new residential trash hauling with Republic Services, once again, and residential recycling collection with Tennis Sanitation. And based on those new contracts, we are proposing some amendments to our solid waste ordinance. And I'll go over those amendments briefly. So in the amendments, we include some new definitions. City residential garbage and recycling program. We just want to identify that that's our contracted hauler, Republic Services. Small business and church, during the last contract with Tennis Sanitation, we started allowing small businesses and churches to opt into the residential recycling program, but it was never formally, written into the contract or the ordinance. And now it's in the contract, and we want to memorialize that in the ordinance as well. The previous ordinance outlined that the hours of collection for trash and recycling from our residential contracted haulers was to be consistent with the contracts. And the reason for that is Tennis's contract was written before Republic Services, and for many years it outlined that they could collect recycling from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. And then when we amended the solid waste ordinance and created the contract with Republic Services, when we first organized, that was changed to 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So here we had two haulers under different rules, so it didn't make sense. So now it's in both contracts, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., and then we will also put it in the ordinance. We need to change our multifamily recycling language. So this will be something new. When we first rolled out multifamily recycling in the city, Tennis Sanitation rolled out 95-gallon carts to all the multifamily properties. And then the city of Maplewood began tacking on that recycling fee directly onto their water bill. And it was something that just happened automatically. They didn't, and I wasn't around for that, so I'm not sure the history exactly, but it wasn't like they could opt out of the recycling fee, but they could opt out of the recycling program, which means they could continue to contract with a different hauler. And so now, as I've been doing some research, and I think there are only 4 multifamily properties, some are quite large, that don't utilize the City of Maplewood's recycling program. One is a manufactured home park, and there's probably about 250 homes there. Another is an apartment complex. There's probably about 150 homes, and then two other apartments with not as many. But at any rate, we want to ensure that we're working with those properties in particular, letting them know that moving forward, these multifamily properties cannot, quote, opt out. And that's something that was written into the recycling contract to ensure, that they maintained a certain number of properties for the recycling. So at any rate, that's something we want to put in the ordinance. And then the recycling dumpsters, and here's one of the reasons why these properties did not want to utilize the city's program, was because we only supplied 95-gallon carts. But now, under the new contract, Tennis will supply recycling dumpsters if there's 21 units or more. So I'm just outlining these. If you have any questions as I move along, please let me know.
Commissioner Redmond?
Just a verification. It's, the document here in front of us says that it's not opting in, it's requiring all multifamily. Is that correct?
Correct. Under the previous ordinance, it
was an
was you could opt in.
Okay.
Yeah. So now what we're proposing is that
It's a
a
requirement.
requirement. Exactly.
Nice.
We wanted to add some language on organics recycling. We don't have curbside organics yet. It is outlined in the trash hauling contract that they'll work with the city once the infrastructure is in place to do that curbside organics. And the county is planning for the durable compostable bags that will be placed right in the trash, and then when it's tipped, it'll be separated. So that's coming, and they keep giving us different dates, but the last I heard was 2022. But we do have, the drop-off food scraps recycling. The city of Maplewood has one of those satellite drop-offs at our community center parking lot. And then, so we have some language that we added in the ordinance on that. The delinquent accounts, it was kind of contradictory in the last ordinance when the trash hauling contractor could request that the city assess delinquent accounts. So what happens is if the account is past due by 6 months, the hauler, Republic Services, then turns over those addresses to the city of Maplewood, and we would place those on their taxes, once they've been notified and so forth. So previously it was, I think, 3, yeah. The payment of fees, just outlining that the recycling fee is charged on your water and sanitary sewer bills, because the city of Maplewood does not do utility billing. So for the recycling, Tennis actually bills the city monthly, and then we tack on that fee onto residents' water bills, and then, we reimburse Tennis. Whereas Republic Services does the billing directly to the resident. Adding that detail about the small business and churches, allowing them to opt into the city's recycling program. And then under the new contract, Tennis is also going to be offering recycling dumpsters to those small businesses. So we'll have to come up with a program to promote that.
Commissioner Redmond?
So why would we not, rather than having opt-in language for small businesses in church, why wouldn't we require, so that now it's citywide, we have the ability to coordinate all of the recycling within the city? It just seems like will allow us to continue to create innovations as we move forward, because we're in better control. Plus, it reduces greenhouse gas emissions from having trucks rumbling all over the city. I mean, it just reduces that. Is there any reason why we can't explore that?
Well, when you organize trash hauling, there is a process. You have to follow the state statute, which we did for the residential piece. So I'm sure it'd be something similar for business. And of course, we are only allowing small business and churches to opt in because we, of course, couldn't accommodate, a large, whatever, Health East Hospital or something. So how do you identify and categorize small business?
Why
So,
not categorize it the same way the federal government does? Just asking. I'm not saying we have to, I'm just asking.
well, I think the biggest issue is that you'd have to follow the Minnesota statute on organizing trash hauling, and it's quite a process to require businesses to be part of the program. And, we don't have the contract for that either, so maybe that's something that we look at in the future, under the 5.5 years from now, when we go out for RFP again.
We'll keep that on the back burner,
Yeah.
in our back pocket.
But incentivizing the small businesses and churches to opt in is a great way to better manage our solid waste. We currently have, I think it's about 30 small businesses and churches that have opted in. And now when we roll out this opportunity for the dumpsters, because most businesses, they want to recycle the cardboard. And that cardboard, if you don't break it down, you can't get it in those carts. So I think we'll see a lot more coming on board with that opportunity.
I agree. I was really excited to hear that they were going to put those in there.
And then we're amending the licensing requirements just to be more realistic and in line with other cities. I guess our auto liability coverage was, unfair is what we heard. So this is proposed as suggested by our city attorney. Took a look at this. And then finally, the standards, which I added to your packet this time because I didn't have time to amend anything to that document last go around. But the changes that were made are in line with the ordinance changes, basically. But the one item that I wanted you to focus on that is not in our ordinance currently is that the multi-family, if they opt into the city's trash service, cannot opt out, is how it's currently written in the standards. And so the background there is when we organized residential trash hauling, there were some townhomes and manufactured homes that had current contracts with haulers because, they basically have one hauler for their neighborhood. And that became problematic. So we set aside those types of homes and didn't include it in the organized trash hauling, but said that they could opt in. And then once they opt in, they can't opt out. And the purpose for that has to do with the purchase of the carts. Of course, Maplewood purchases the carts, Republic Services manages them, and we do charge a 75-cent per household per month cart fee, but a cart, like a 95-gallon cart, is probably about $50, so it would take years to pay off that cart. So if we were to roll out, 200 carts, and then 2 months later they say, no, we don't want your service, it wouldn't be financially smart, let's say. So that was one reason. And then, of course, to better manage our solid waste. So once a neighborhood opts in, we'd like to continue to service that and have consistent education and so forth with our city program.
That makes a lot of sense, that they've basically been grandfathered in and we're respecting their previous thing until their contract is up or whatever, and then they join the team.
So we have heard some pushback on that. That's why some have not opted in. And I should have had all the statistics before you here, but I think there were 4,000 households that are in townhomes and manufactured homes that originally were not part of the organized trash. But over the 7 years, we might have, well, there's a long way to go as far as getting them to opt in, but we've made some headway on that. So there's a lot before you here, and once you are complete with your review, I will just ensure that the city departments that deal in this realm, like licensing, there might be some minor modifications that they would identify. But we do hope to get this before the council in the spring sometime, particularly once we've had the opportunity to do outreach with all the multifamily. And I did work with Tennis Sanitation on including a flyer in their annual report. Tennis, as part of their contract, is required to submit an annual report to all the multifamily buildings, to the property owners, and it identifies how much they've recycled and the types of materials, and then includes some educational information. And so in that annual report, I included this flyer that talked about the ordinance amendments that we're doing here, and also identified Ramsey County has this program under Biz Recycling that's offering grants to assist multifamily properties in their recycling program. So it's $10,000 grant to fund, recycling containers or do some education, things like that. So I let them know about that opportunity as well. So that was the first step to notifying them all.
Now, would we have to continue on with that leg of that before we can make a motion on this, or?
No, if you're prepared, and I know it's a lot to take in, but if you are prepared, you could make a motion tonight.
Is there anyone who has any specific questions or information that they need added to this to look at before they would make a decision? Commissioner Redmond?
So, our waste contract will come up in 5.42 years or whatever it is. Can we flag to have this just brought up prior to issuing for that contract, just to explore the commission that's here at the time, whether or not change, for instance, is there more, some other new thing going on in waste collection and recycling that we want to put into the ordinance at the same time that we're doing a contract, So we don't, just that they can be done at the same time. Is that possible?
Sure. Normally your request for proposal is kind of broad-based, has all these lofty goals, and you hope you get some innovative proposals in, And then once you get those proposals in and you have a contract, that's where then you want to change your ordinance. I mean, right? Normally?
Well, I don't know.
Yes.
I trust your opinion on that.
So what you're saying is make sure and look at the ordinance prior to releasing another RFP? Is that what you're getting at?
One of the things that might have been helpful, since I was part of that process with you, was if we would have had the ordinance in front of us about what things went well and what things didn't go well before we did the RFP, it might be helpful to kind of be able to ask for different things if we need to at that time. Is that?
Kind of. Yeah.
And then, we can kind of say, okay, this would be easier to have an ordinance that would cover these things if these were the goals that we were looking for. Maybe just to have it on the front of our brain, not necessarily to make changes at that time. Is that kind of?
Yes.
Okay.
I think that's getting at it.
Because I think that it would have been helpful to have this in front of us instead of, I know that like partway through our process, we went and got them, but it would have been helpful to have them at, like, this is where we are, and these are the things that they've had to follow. These are things that can change. What went well, what didn't go well, maybe we can clean it up a little bit, kind of a thing. Do some of the work ahead of time instead of throwing it all at you afterwards, because I don't think that, I think you're absolutely correct that it wouldn't have worked to change anything before the RFP went out, and absolutely it would have to be done after, but just to take a look at what worked well and what didn't throughout the contract might be helpful before the next RFP goes out.
Right, right. So in releasing the RFP and working with the proposal review committee, you forget that you're not doing this day to day like I am. So having that review of the ordinance and what is currently allowed and so forth prior to releasing an RFP is absolutely key, yeah. But of course, we wouldn't have known that the hauler was able to supply dumpsters for, the multifamily unless they proposed it to us. So that's why it's difficult to make an ordinance change and then,
Right.
but I see where you're going with that, so yes.
Yeah.
That will be in 4 years, the RFP will be released, so.
You're picking up what we're throwing down?
Because you need some time then to negotiate the contract.
Right. Well, I was just thinking, like, if we would have, like, now that we have some contractors who have the ability to have these dumpsters, let's make sure that we don't lose that. Oh, this
Oh,
went
right.
well, or, you know what, that didn't work out really
Right,
well.
right.
Let's not have that as part of our thing, just for us lay people who, like you said, aren't up to our armpits in it every single day like you are.
And then also, I wanted to remind you that yearly, the haulers, Tennis and Republic Services, come before you, and in the new contracts, we outline that they have to do a work plan every year. So if we want to try some new innovative approaches, so when Tennis is before us here in April, we can talk about that business and church and them opting in, and how can we, as a commission, assist in that, doing that outreach to ensure we get as many joining in as possible.
Redmond? Commissioner Redmond, sorry.
So I just want to say, I think the changes in here are superb. I have yeses with exclamations next to 1, 3, and 7. I think those are all awesome changes. I'm a little thick-headed. I'm not entirely certain why we can't require the small business and churches to recycle, but I'm trustful of your guidance on that. But in general,
Oh, just the recycling piece, yeah. No, I'll have to get you more details on that, but I actually was talking about trash hauling when I said they have to follow the statute. But, there are state laws that say if a business is a certain size, they have to supply recycling. But you're saying that in the ordinance, you wanted something that identifies that you have to be part of the city's program?
yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so. I don't have a direct answer for you except to say, I don't know how we would do that because there's so many small businesses and churches out there. We have not agreed to that with Tennis, that you're going to take over all the small business and churches, number one. I don't think they have the capacity to do that. It's not in the contract.
Okay.
So we can't really change our ordinance when we don't have a contract for it.
And therein lies my, yeah.
But we can ask them about it when they do their presentations for us, if that would be something they could look into, or just the opt-in if it's going in that direction.
I did meet with them to talk about contract issues, and one of their concerns is that, once we roll out the dumpster program for the small businesses, that they'll be inundated and won't be able to accommodate all those, because they have to purchase the dumpsters. So they want to make sure it's a kind of a phased approach, a certain number every month or something. But we both think that we'll get a big influx of people wanting to participate in that. once we promote that.
Right.
Okay.
So yes, let's make sure and bring that up at the work session. But I don't think it's something that we can add to our ordinance to have this a requirement, because again, it's not in their contract. But it's our goal to get them all opted in, so let's
Right.
work on that.
Right. It might not hurt to ask them what kind of capacity they would have if, if half of them did, would they be able to accommodate? Just ask for future and have them kind of thinking that that's where we're headed as well.
We'd have to identify, what that number is. How many
Right.
small businesses and churches are there in Maplewood? And what is a small business? We don't,
Right.
at any rate.
Me, myself, and I in my backyard.
I have a question
Oops, I'm
along
sorry.
those lines. Been just a curiosity to me since first seeing the text of this ordinance and all the discussions we've had about it is, the question is, why are we singling out churches? Businesses and churches, aren't there other nonprofit organizations, I don't know what they would be exactly, that produce trash and need that service as well? Or do we just wing it, assume that anything that doesn't fit falls under the church's category? Or is that best left just lie for the time being?
Well, a nonprofit would be a business. Churches, they're identified because many of them are nestled in residential areas, already on the residential recycling route. And they don't generate that much recycling like the boxes and so forth, like the cardboard that many of the businesses do. So I think that's why they were specifically identified originally when we first started this program. And then we thought, there's probably some businesses that could benefit from this. And since we rolled out this program, there's been some challenges. Some businesses would opt in, and then we would find that they just are generating too much recycling or too many boxes, and they weren't breaking them down, and they would be on the side of the cart, and the driver would have to get out and put all the boxes in the truck, and it was just getting to be too much that we actually had to ask 2 businesses last year. We had to turn them away eventually because they just, we couldn't handle the capacity under our current program. So that's why it's real key to identify in the beginning if a business would benefit from the program or if they have too much capacity. But I think a small business, a nonprofit would fall under that. And, if you don't feel comfortable with this language and you want to see it back, don't feel pressure to, because it's there's a lot in there. So you let me know. We have next month. We have time.
Well, I, for one, would offer up a motion for approval. I appreciate all the language in there. Aside from the conversation about small business and church, and I think your point's awesome, that maybe we focus a little bit on outreach for opting in, find a way to encourage that, and then understanding that we can look at it, or the commission that exists in 4.2 years can look at the ordinance again as the RFP is going out to see if, there's things that they want to push. So with all that in mind, I would like to make a motion of approval of the recommended changes to the ordinance.
Commissioner Redmond puts out a motion to approve the solid waste management ordinance and standards as amended. Is there a second? Second.
Right on key.
Good job. Commissioner Buttleman seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Since we all kind of had input already. Motion passes. do this, I know.
Thank you.
Sorry. Okay, sorry. And we'll move on to number 7, visitor presentations. Bueller? Nothing? Any commissioner presentations? Nobody amended any? Beginning, that's my favorite face so far today, come on. And staff presentations. Ms. Finwell, how you feeling?
Thank you. I wanted to update you and remind you that our spring cleanup is April 18th this year. It'll be at Aldrich Arena, and it'll be from 8 a.m. until 1 p.m. And this is where we accept large bulky items, things that you normally can't recycle or dispose of at the curbside, appliances, electronics, tires, mattresses. We also like to promote as much reuse and recycling as we can. We work with a couple vendors that take in bicycles, and they'll refurbish them, and some of them go to Africa for use, and others are sold here locally. We work with Small Engine Doctor is the name, and they take in old not snowmobiles, no,
Snow throwers?
snow blowers, yeah. Maybe next year, snowmobiles. What time is it? Oh, my gosh. And also lawnmowers, things like that, and then they refurbish them for reuse. We have US Again, Use Again coming, and they will take lightly used clothing. So you can see that every year we try to, add some element of reuse, so we're not just disposing of it all. And this will be the first year that we actually work with Republic Services. So as part of the contract, the 5.5-year contract, Republic Services is offering to do the spring cleanup at no charge to the city, where previously we had to contract with different haulers to do that. So that was a real value add in our new contract with So we're always looking for interested volunteers. And again, this is a great opportunity to do outreach, because we usually have about 500 vehicles that enter that gate, and it's a great opportunity to meet your fellow community members and tell them about different programs we're working on. So if you're interested, I'll send out an email and ask if you'd like to participate.
Sure.
I've got your name. Okay, thank you.
If I was invited, I'd have to bring my kids, and nobody wants that right now. It's all good.
Come to work.
Not my 9-year-old. He'd be climbing stuff.
And then the next item is Earth Day. So that's April 22nd, and this is the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. So we're hoping at the city of Maplewood with our green team and so forth to kind of make a big to-do about it throughout the year, bringing a resolution to our city council in recognition of the 50th anniversary. So if you as a commission had any ideas, of course with us, with the commission, every day is Earth Day, right? But if you wanted to make a really special day out of it or celebrate the year, it's just an idea. And finally, let's see, I added an item, didn't I? Oh, yes. The March 16th Environmental Commission meeting. So I was going to ask for a show of hands for people on spring break, March 16th.
We're done by then.
Yeah, I think I'm done.
Oh, darn, because I was going to be.
I mean,
Oh, right.
No, but now I'm thinking about the possibility of this work session with our council. Could be an opportunity. where maybe we could kind of reschedule this March 16th date to, so I'll look at some of those opportunities, but we don't have any formal action items until April, which is the annual reviews of the haulers. So I'm looking at the possibility of, and I hate to do this, but of canceling the meeting. But I think what I would like to propose is to maybe, well, we could have the Nature Center come. At any rate, there'll be some more on that date, more information.
I'm going to put a question mark next to that.
It's hard to take a vacation around here,
Yeah, you can't do it.
but
Just do it.
perhaps
Yeah.
I think I like the idea about trying to do a work session with the council on a different date. So let me get back to you on that. Thanks for
wonder-
hearing me out.
Yeah, I wonder if we could do a work session with the Nature Center to see how we could help them
Oh,
on a different day or whatever.
Right, right.
Yeah. As one of our goals being accomplished.
That would be nice.
And then I apologize, I don't have my big list of Nature Center programs, but I do have a fun one here that maybe someone would like to report on. And we'll
read
just,
it on the
we'll
screen.
just do this one here when it comes up. So we're going to promote this item from the Nature Center, who is our partner in environmental education. I know it says staff presentations, but I'm throwing it at you guys.
Nature on Tap fundraiser, Friday, April 17th from 5 to 8 p.m. at the Crooked Pint Ale House at 1734 Adelphus Street, Maplewood. Enjoy a cold one and have some fun with friends while uncovering the mysteries of the nature in our backyard. Learn about bringing frogs back to life. Is that like CPR for frogs? Or are we talking about just making sure that, like, we're not killing them off with all of our pollution? Oh, because they're frozen. Got it. Sorry. High-fiving bees. That sounds dangerous. Minnesota bats. Using fire to regenerate land. Present a coupon at event for 15% off the bill. Supports Maplewood Nature Center. Dine-in only from 5 to 8 p.m. I want to do a CPR on a frog now.
How do we get that coupon?
Well, it gets mailed out in seasons or in the Nature Center's thing, right?
Take a picture with your phone right now.
I can't.
No, I don't.
I'm sure it's printed
Or
out
mention
and
it.
put in
Maybe
a
we should
mailing.
ask if we can just mention it.
I'll have to forward this to you. What a fun idea, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's not high five bees, though. Just saying.
All right, well, thank you, everyone.
How come you don't get to do anything cool with the bats, though?
I know.
Frogs back to life?
Oh.
High five bees?
She's
What
got
are
it.
some cool with bats?
He was going to take a picture with his phone.
Too late. Too
I'll,
slow.
I'll send it to you.
Thank you.
All right, it looks like we are done with our agenda. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
No other Maplewood programs?
I'm sorry, I wasn't quite prepared.
I should have brought the
Darn
ones
it.
you left last time.
I'll move to adjourn.
Do I have a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned at 8:20 PM.